I brought him home to give him a better life. I believed love could fill in the missing pieces of a life, that routine and patience could build a new kind of family. For a long time, I thought it was working. We ate dinner at the same table every night. We marked his height on the kitchen door frame. We laughed at the same dumb commercials. I thought the quiet was peace. I didn't realize it was only the stillness before something else. My name is Isabelle. I'm 44, a high school literature teacher in Portland, Oregon. I never married, not for lack of wanting. Life just slipped past in semesters and summer breaks. When I turned 35, I started the adoption process because the ache for a child wouldn't go away. I filled out forms, cleaned corners of the house nobody sees, opened drawers for social workers who took notes on how I folded towels. 9 months of questions and classes, and then a photo. A boy from Uganda, 10 years old, face solemn, eyes too old. His name was Malik. At the airport, he didn't cry, and he didn't smile. He stood in a jacket that was too thin for an Oregon February, and he watched me the way people look through a window into a warm room. I crouched. I said his name. I handed him a scarf with clumsy hands, and he let me tie it. On the drive home, he stared out at rain that felt endless. He fell asleep with the scarf still on. The first months were made of small, steady things. Breakfast at 7, school drop-off at 8, a note in his lunchbox with a little drawing of a sun or a fish. He didn't like to be touched much, so I didn't push. Sometimes at night he sat on the floor by my couch while I graded essays, and he drew animals, masks, trees that looked like rivers turned vertical. Once, as I turned off the light, he whispered, "Thank you, Mama," in a voice so thin I could have missed it. It went through me like thaw. He was a careful child, careful with pencils, careful with the way he placed his shoes by the front door, careful with words. At 12, he discovered watercolor. At 13, he made a friend who liked soccer and comics. At 14, he slept through his first thunderstorm without waking. I kept every scrap of paper he left on the table, even the ones with nothing but lines and breathing marks. His therapist said we were doing well. Attachment takes time, she told me. Keep showing up. So I did. I showed up for homework tantrums, for school plays, for fevers, for quiet victories like the time he asked if we could invite a classmate over, and then stood next to me while I dialed the number. He grew fast, taller than me by 15, voice lower at 16. That year, it wasn't just his body that changed. I felt it first as a shift in temperature. He watched me the way he watched blank paper, like he was waiting for a shape to appear. I caught him looking at me, and he didn't glance away. It was subtle at first, the length of his gaze, the way he stood in a doorway, just inside the frame. The extra second, his fingers rested on my shoulder when he passed behind me at the sink. I told myself I was projecting. I told myself he was a teenager, and teenagers are strange mirrors. I told myself not to make a story where there wasn't one. One Sunday afternoon, I woke up from a nap on the couch and found him sitting in the chair across from me. No book, no phone, hands quiet on his knees. He held my eyes like he was testing a glass for cracks. "How long have you been there?" I asked, still half underwater. He tilted his head a little. "You breathe different when you dream." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. I told myself it was just a weird comment. I asked him if he'd eaten. He said yes. That night I locked the bathroom door while I showered and hated myself for the click of the lock. He started drawing people. He didn't show me, but he left one page on the kitchen table by accident. It was me. Not glamorous, not posed, just me, sitting with my knees up, hair wet, eyes closed. It was too good. It was exact. The mouth looked like breath, the throat like a corridor. I stood there with the refrigerator open, long enough for the motor to kick on. I wanted to be proud of his talent. I wanted to be only proud. I was grading papers late one evening when I noticed the small smoke detector in my bedroom blinked a light I didn't recognize. I stood on a chair and lifted the plastic housing. A tiny lens stared back. The air left me so quickly, I had to sit down on the floor. I pressed both hands over my mouth, hard enough to feel my pulse and my gums. The camera was warm. I waited for him in the kitchen the next day. The house had never felt smaller. He walked in, set his backpack down, washed his hands. I held the device up. What is this? My voice sounded like it belonged to somebody who lived next door. He looked. He didn't reach for it. He said, calm as a librarian, "You weren't supposed to find it yet." Yet, I heard the word bounce off the cabinets and come back thinner. "It's not to hurt you," he said. "It's to see you. I'm your mother," I said, because I didn't know how to say anything else. "This is wrong." He studied my face like a drawing he intended to finish. "You brought me here because you wanted me," he said. "You said I was yours. I believed you. I wanted a son," I managed. "I wanted you safe." He took a step closer, not threatening, almost gentle. "You saved me from outside things," he said. "Who saved me from inside things?" He was 19 then. The room answered with the sound of the fridge motor again. I set the camera down on the counter and said, he needed to sleep in the guest house. I said we would get help. I said boundaries like it was a spell that could keep both of us from drowning. I changed the locks. I added a deadbolt to my bedroom. I installed an actual security system and told the company to put a camera pointed at my own bed. The irony not lost on me. I phoned the adoption agency and asked for every old report. Language I hadn't seen before rose up. Boundary concerns. Nighttime wandering. A foster sister who wouldn't sleep in her room anymore. Notes written like crumbs, too small to follow. He went to counseling. He came home quieter, which I didn't think was possible. He moved his things to the guest house behind the garage, where my brother used to sleep when he visited. I bought new sheets. He thanked me when I left them folded on the foot of the bed. He didn't ask for his camera back. I didn't return it. A week later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a printed photograph of me asleep, taken from above. I brought it to the police. They wrote a report, spoke to him. He said I had cameras everywhere, and maybe I was confused. The officer's face was polite in a way that made me feel foolish. I stood in my own kitchen with two men and felt like a guest. "Get a restraining order," my friend Rachel said. "Send him away." "Where?" I asked. "To who?" Words I used when he was 10 felt small and useless now. He was 19, legally an adult, technically my responsibility, and also not. A fact that made everything harder, sharper, stranger. The night I broke happened in Roses. I came home from grading essays at a coffee shop to find my bedroom door ajar, and the room lit like a soft chapel. Rose petals on the bed, my favorite wine breathing on the nightstand, a note folded once and placed square in the center of the mattress. "We don't have to hide anymore." I didn't go in. I stepped backward down the hall, grabbed my keys from the hook, drove until the city turned to freeway, until the freeway turned to darkness, until the gas light blinked. I slept in a motel with walls thin enough to hear the person in the next room. In the morning, I drove home with the kind of headache that starts between the shoulder blades. The bed was made, the petals gone, the wine bottle washed and placed back with its label, facing forward. The note was gone. The room smelled like regular air. I met him at the kitchen table, with 2 chairs pulled out. He sat, folded his hands, waited. He has always been good at waiting. This has to stop, I said. We have to make this stop. Stop what? He asked, almost curious. This looking, I said. This, whatever this is. He held my eyes for so long. I felt something in my neck click. Don't look at me like I'm a child, he said finally. I'm not. You are my child, I said. He tilted his head. That's a word you say to make you feel safe, he said. It's not a word that makes me feel anything. This is not love, I said. Whatever you think this is, it isn't that. He leaned forward, just enough that I could see the faint scar on his eyebrow from when he fell off a bike at 12. Then don't call it love, he said. Call it truth. I moved him out after that. For real, we found a studio apartment 2 miles away, walking distance to a gallery, where he got a part-time job, cutting mats and cleaning frames. I paid the first 3 months' rent. I told myself it was to help him start, not to make myself feel less like someone who'd lost a limb. He texted Rachel to pick up his mail sometimes. He didn't text me. He sent drawings though, impossibly good ones, unmarked envelopes, the paper heavy, the charcoal ground into the fibers in a way that made the whites feel bright. In almost every one, there was an eye, not always mine, but always familiar, like a mirror in bad lighting. I put them in a drawer. I opened the drawer sometimes at night, and then shut it again too quickly, like the air in there could bite. I started therapy for myself. I walked around the block every morning before school, because the doctor said movement helps the kind of fear that feels like a battery. I carried pepper spray in my purse, and then in my pocket, because the purse felt too far away. I taught my juniors about boundaries in literature, and tried not to laugh when a boy said, "Can't boundaries ruin love?" I said something like, "Sometimes they're the only thing that keeps it honest." One afternoon, the gallery owner called to say they were showing a few of Malik's pieces in a group exhibition, and would I like to come? I said I had plans, and then sat in my car in the school parking lot for an hour, staring through the windshield, while rain stitched and unstitched itself. I didn't go. I looked at the photos online later. There was a painting of a door left slightly open, light pooling through the crack onto a bed, inside a dim room. Title: Breath. The comments said things about composition and restraint, and how the artist captured the feeling of being right outside something you can't. And I turned off my phone and sat in the dim living room and listened to the heater cycle on and off. That night, a text came from an unknown number. "I'm okay, Mama. I want you to be okay too." The word mama cracked and didn't break. I put my phone face down and went to the sink and turned on the water and let it run until it ran cold again. I slept with my door locked and the security camera light blinking, tiny and steady, the opposite of a heartbeat. Months passed. I learned exactly how long it takes coffee to bloom when you pour slowly in a circle. I learned I could go a whole day without thinking about the camera if I let myself focus on things like the basil plant on the windowsill, or the way the neighbor's dog sneezed when he stuck his head out the car window. I also learned I could be thrown back by nothing: a scarf left on a chair, a hallway reflection that looked like someone standing still. I saw him once in the grocery store parking lot in October. The sky was that particular Oregon gray that makes headlights necessary at 4 in the afternoon. He walked past me with his hood up and his hands in his pockets. He didn't turn his head. He didn't look. The mercy of that, almost put me on my knees. Sometimes not looking is the kindest thing a person can do. At home, I wiped down the counter like it would give me answer. I locked my bedroom door, and the sound didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like choosing myself. I took the old drawings out of the bottom drawer, little kid drawings, sky and stick figures, a hand and a bigger hand, the word mama, written like a lad. I held the paper up and felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't forgetting. It was a kind of placing. All the pieces of the story had weight again. Sometimes at night, I still wake and stare at the ceiling and remember the camera that used to stare back. I don't imagine his face there now. I imagine the empty plastic ring where the device sat and the way the ceiling looks when you move the bed to vacuum under it properly. I imagine a house that is mine again, not because I shut him out, but because I let the word mine mean something different. I don't know if I saved him. I don't know if he saved me. I don't know who either of us would have been if we hadn't found each other across an ocean and a paperwork pile. I only know that love, without lines, eats the hand that feeds it, and that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is draw a line and stand behind it like a wall with a window. I sleep with the door locked still, not because I'm hiding, because I am finally home.